Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I suspect that the goodwill that the Government House Leader is going to be tested today, because this matter is coming to a vote, and we'll see if they in fact do support this important amendment, because I certainly do. We are not talking about treatment beds. We are not talking about therapeutic beds. What Bill 48 does is create jail beds. It creates jail beds for non-violent mental health patients who happen to use drugs to cope. So there are no due process safeguards in this legislation, and this legislation will cause harm. There is overwhelming evidence, and this has been tried before, where you force treatment on somebody, it doesn't work to begin with, and the reverse is true. It often has collateral impacts that ends up hurting the people that you claim to support. Coercion is not compassion, and that's what Bill 48 is. It's about coercion. Now, our chief judge in Manitoba has described our justice system as being systemically racist. And what he means by that is that it's not neutral, that it doesn't affect Manitobans equally, and certain demographics are adversely affected by our laws, and we have to be mindful of it. When we talk about systemic racism going forward in Manitoba, we will be pointing to Bill 48. And this will be the example we use of a law that has significant implications for Manitobans. So Manitobans who've committed no crime will be forcefully detained and jailed in a windowless solitary confinement cell for up to 72 hours. They will not be allowed to bathe. They will not be allowed to change their clothes. They will have to eat next to a toilet in their cells. They will have to sleep with the lights on 24 hours a day. They will lie on a thin mattress on the ground, on a concrete floor. I suspect they won't even be given a blanket. People who have lived these conditions in the current sobering center describe it as humiliation. These are inhumane conditions for somebody who has committed no crime and has done nothing wrong. These are dangerous facilities, violent facilities, that have their own category of complaints at the Law Enforcement Review Agency, which reports each year about problematic detentions at the current sobering center. It's well documented, these complaints of police abusing this law in its current form for 24 hours. Imagine at 72 hours. There is no complaint process in this bill. There's no right to appear before a magistrate to plead that you were mistakenly taken into custody. There is no objective test that you are even impaired or still impaired after 24 hours. And at the complete control and discretion of whatever police officer arrests you and whoever is the paid prison guard who's overseeing you. You don't even get a phone call to a family member to get you out or to a lawyer. And you're barred from suing the province or the city when your rights have been abused and you've been illegally detained. But it gets worse, and here's why these reporting conditions are so critical. Because this law only applies to people who are intoxicated in public. That's the key word. It targets and will be disproportionately used against Indigenous and other racialized minorities, poor, homeless, and the most vulnerable Manitobans. That's already taking place under the current law. We also know not only is this law racist, it also is very much sexist. And we know this from the Women's Resource Center that came to committee and spoke to educate this chamber. And they warned, and the government certainly didn't listen, that this law will disproportionately impact women. Women are using meth for several reasons. Women who are homeless are obviously, food insecure and are often starving. Well, meth gets rid of the cravings and the hunger pains. So it gives a reason for people to use that so you don't feel the hunger. It also keeps you awake. Many women do not feel safe going to Manitoba shelters. They find them dangerous, violent places where they're often preyed upon. Not being able to go to the shelter, you have to stay outdoors. having to stay outdoors, there's no shortage of predators there. That means you have to stay awake. Well, meth allows people to do that and stay vigilant and awake for their own safety. And they take meth for that purpose. All this would combine to mean that they will more likely be arrested, picked up, thrown into these detention facilities, and held than others of Manitobans would. This amendment will force the government to keep that data, showing that their policy is causing real harm to specific groups in Manitoba. Now, in fairness, I don't think this amendment goes far enough. I am going to support it. It doesn't collect data for racialized Manitobans. It absolutely should. That data will clearly show what we all know, is that this is one of the drivers of our system being systemically racist. Government policy and taxpayer money is going to fund the furthering of a systemically racist justice system. And collecting gender, age, and frequency data is a good start. Again, I wish this wasn't necessary. The Canoe government has left many people behind, including women and BIPOC Manitobans. It has refused to invest and improve the shelter system and to listen to the women who are forced to use it. Our shelters should be safe places, and they should be a positive alternative to sleeping rough, but this government has absolutely ignored that and not made those safe. This government has shown in this bill that it is easy and quick to find money for new jail spaces, but when it comes to treatment beds, when it comes to improving shelters, when it comes to actually providing real mental health supports, keep in mind the Mental Health Crisis Center recently in the news was raising the alarm that they are chronically underfunded and cannot keep up with demand. We had a recent inquest report from a provincial court judge in relation to—
Order, please.
Yes.
I've given the member quite a bit of leeway in making sure his comments are relevant to the amendment. It's time to kind of stick to the amendment now. The honourable member for Fort Garry.
Well, thank you, Honourable Speaker, for your guidance. Where I'm going, and I'll be quicker about this, is I'm trying to show that there's been an adverse impact in Manitoba about who gets, basically falls under these type of rules, who's going to get adversely impacted in those rules, and the different approaches the government has taken, and that they've taken more of a punitive approach as opposed to one that actually would address the causes of the crisis and would actually make a dent into keeping people safe, and that this is more of a public relations exercise. It's more about appearing to do something. It's more about showing, it's basically trying to disappear embarrassing Manitobans. The Manitobans that this government is embarrassed about, shamed about, because when Manitobans see these individuals, they see that the government's policies when it comes to mental health and addictions are failing in a very real and visceral way. And so instead of addressing the problem and actually fixing it, this government wants to take people off the streets. And this is going to have an adverse effect. Their lives will get harmed from this. And we need this amendment because it's going to show Manitobans what I think is becoming more and more obvious to people in this chamber, that this law doesn't actually do what they're saying it does. It doesn't actually help Manitobans. And this is one minor safeguard to protect Manitobans and to sort of tell the true story about Bill 48, that it's not about treatment, it's about punishment, it's about jail. It doesn't keep people safe at all. And we'll see, because I think the government House Leader is not sincere when she says she supports this amendment, and I suspect that they'll be voting against it later on this afternoon, which again, this long rambling speech of hers about trying to build trust between House leaders, I think that will actually set things back and be entirely bad for this chamber. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.